that person or coming to that person. So it causes, there's a lot more stigma and shame and discrimination or harassment. It also impacts the effectiveness of the efforts and how we're putting these efforts in to make sure that the numbers go down instead of keep increasing. So these are some of the impacts that we have. Now I'm going to spend the remainder of the time just discussing some suicide prevention methods. All right. Now, suicide, it requires a lot. The prevention methods, it requires a lot. But most importantly, in order for it to be effective, again, it requires coordination and collaboration among multiple divisions. Not just people are here. It really requires a lot. And given the multifaceted approach that we really need to take, these efforts can be put into practice and they can be integrated, and hopefully let's work towards decreasing that number, decreasing those statistics that I talked about. I think first thing we need to do is end the stigma. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later regarding mental health. We need to normalize seeking help. It's okay. There's nothing wrong. If you need help, it's okay. And early intervention, that is critical. Early intervention, seeing it, let's teach our kids, let's teach our babies how to problem solve. Not just, oh, stop it, do it. Let's teach them what do they need to do, how to problem solve, whether it's situations with friends or whatever may come up. Let's teach them how to do that and how to cope with the emotions that they're going through. But guess what? If you don't know how to do it, maybe you might need to get the help to learn how to do it before you teach your children how to do it. And guess what? That's okay if you need to get help. It's absolutely okay if you need to get help to learn how to do it, in order to be able to better teach your children. We also need to teach and foster social and emotional skills in our adolescents. Teach them how to deal with those emotions. Not everything is going to go their way. Especially post-COVID, it's really been very challenging dealing with our children and the way that so we really need to step up our game when we think about it. And with teenagers, they can be a little impulsive sometimes. So we need to make sure we're working really quickly with them. Next slide. Now this is critical. Helping the person be surrounded by supportive people. That may mean, and it's okay, that may mean you may need to cut some people out of your life for a period of time. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's helping you to be around people who are supportive and helping you to feel like, to increase your self-worth and sense of belonging. And that may, helping sometimes with teenagers, you may need to, okay, you know what? That particular friend is not really a friend. And I'm not saying to say it like that, but that may be something you recognize and having to approach, okay, you know what? How can we help them to be around people who are a lot more supportive? And creating that non-judgmental environment, whether they're with friends or at home with family, and helping them to learn that it's okay to discuss your emotions. It's okay to discuss your problems and frustrations. And it also may mean for us that we need to promote mental health education. That means what I love, I said this the other day, one good thing that came out of COVID is the fact that we can be on so many different workshops virtually. We don't have to leave our house. We don't have to do it. We can just be sitting at home and be a part. So if that means that you need to participate in some kind of training regarding mental health education, let's do that. Providing support through encouraging counseling and support groups. And also, a lot of the support can come virtually for many of our individuals who are having these suicidal thoughts or getting, having these mental health issues or, The other practice, we need to ensure they get that professional help. And it may mean that we need to create a safety plan. And that safety plan for Mary may be a different safety plan for Elizabeth. But we may need to help them create a safety plan. And that safety plan may include, okay, you know what? I'm a little, if she says this particular comment, then this is something that I need to do. So just creating something that if you know the person well, just creating a safety plan, making sure you want to keep them safe, help them to be safe. All right? The other, another practice, be aware of the crisis resources that are out there. The number 988, okay, that is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline number. Okay, you can call it, text, chat. That is huge. 988. Make sure you please remember that number, 988. There are trained crisis interventionists that are on when you call, so that are on that line. The other area that we need to find out, what are the resources at that person's job? What are the resources at the child's school that can help to support them when they're having a moment? At my job, I know we have an employee assistance program. Some jobs have it, some jobs don't. So that's something that I know that I can, okay, you know what, if one of my employees need it, I can refer them to the employee assistance program. All right? And it doesn't have to be just because it could be for whatever reason, but we need to really figure out what are those resources that are out there for the individuals, and if that means that we need to provide it to them, that's what we're doing. And again, we may need to call 988 with them. Sit right there. Let's make the phone call together. You're providing that support for that person. You're not just saying, oh, here's the number and go do it. It may work that way, but sometimes you may need to make that phone call with that person. All right. Next. Nope, go back. There. Yeah. Thank you. This also means another practice, having those private, honest conversations with people. Keeping them private with them, I mean. Not to say you may need to, okay, you know what? At some point you may need to say something, but making sure that you have those conversations with that person. And please, do not have a debate about the importance of life. That is not the moment to talk about, oh, it's so important that you be here. No, do not. It's not don't do that, please. All right. Don't minimize their feelings, even if you don't agree with them. Don't minimize. Just make sure you validate their feelings. Now, one of the things I said over the years, sometimes their feelings may not be based in any kind of reality, but guess what? At that moment, it's real for them. So, okay, we need to validate their feelings and let's work towards moving it to a different level. Following up with that person, And again, I said this earlier, limiting the access to those, to the means of suicide. These are all practices that we need to make sure we put into place. Okay. Now, oh my goodness. Earlier I mentioned that we need to end the stigma. And here are some of the steps that we can take. And I know it's probably repetitive, but this is really important that we end the stigma about mental health. May, this is, May 31st. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. But honestly, the way things are going, every January through December, needs to be Mental Health Awareness Month. Every month. But we can talk about it when that helps to end the stigma. Promoting those conversations, that helps. Encouraging and accepting the fact that, you know what, your mental and your physical health are of equal value. Let's say I have diabetes and depression. They should be seen as equal. One is not better than the other one. You know what? Oh, people, guess what? It's still a health problem that needs to be addressed. Whether it's a physical or a mental health, it needs to be addressed. We also may need to show compassion and empathy. And how do we do that? I'm a Christian, and when I interact with others, there two scriptures are always in the back of my head. One of them is Ephesians 4:29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Okay. So what that's really saying is it's not about you. Listen to them and making sure that whatever you're saying to them, the conversation that you're having, is beneficial for them. Ephesians 4:32, that's the other scripture. Be kind and compassionate to one another. And what does that mean? Everybody's different, but we still need to be kind and compassionate to one another. And those are some of the things that will help to end the stigma. Now these are right here, this is what to do and what not to say. Act. We need to ask, care, and tell. Ask, again, it's okay. Ask directly. Are you having any thoughts of committing suicide? Are you feeling any, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Those are questions we need to care, listen, again, without judgment. It's not just listening. And I know sometimes listening can be very difficult because we're so caught up in what we want to say, and as opposed to just listening first and then having those thoughts. But make sure we're listening to one another. Telling them. It may mean telling other people. It may mean that you may have to make a phone call. You might have to call the ambulance. You might have to call something if you feel like they're at a point where they may commit suicide. All right? And the things not to say, please don't tell people, oh, I know how you feel. You don't. Please do not say that to them. Even if you suffer with some of the depression, or you may suffer with some of the same experiences they may be going through, but please don't say, oh, I know how you feel. The other thing is get over it. You hear that? Just get over it. And the other thing is, what? Especially now in the world that we're living in, there's so much going on. People say, oh, there's a lot more people have it worse off than you. Please, stop it. No. Those are things that we should not be saying to any individuals when they are at this point. In conclusion, you're not responsible for preventing someone from taking their own lives, but your intervention may help them to see that there are other options that are available to stay safe and to get treatment. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. My glasses.
Can we give her another hand, please? Thank you so much, Dr. Myrie. I appreciate you for opening up the summit for us. Thank you for your information and helping us to start the conversation. The next segment we have is the segment for the panelists. If I can ask all the panelists to come to the stage. Let me do a little rearrangement. We have several different panelists and one more coming up. Several different panelists here to speak about their personal experience with suicide, suicide attempt, and losing a loved one due to suicide. I want to allow, all of them are amazing people that I've gotten to get to know through this over the years, and I'm so want to thank them for their courage and their bravery for coming up here and speaking today. This is not an easy topic, especially since this is an experience that they have lived through. I'm so grateful that they came. Again, I stated earlier, but we do know that this topic is a heavy topic, so if anyone is feeling triggered or feeling overwhelmed, again, I just want to say we have a prayer team to my right here from the church, and we also have counselors on standby. I want to start off by giving everyone a chance to formally introduce themselves, giving their name, who they are, their age, what they do. You don't have to go too deep, but just want to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves. There is a mic right next to you.
Can you hear me? You guys can hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Avery Killebrew. I am a 27-year-old God-fearing man and a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and someone who is deeply committed to purpose-driven work. I hold a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in applied behavior analysis. I currently work at the Princeton Child Development Institute, where I focus on supporting individuals with developmental and behavioral needs. As an advocate for mental health, I believe strongly in the power of education, empathy, and community to create real, lasting change. It's a privilege to be a part of this conversation today, and I'm honored to share space with individuals who are equally passionate about making a difference. And then I just really want to take a second to thank you, Alex, for putting this event together and giving me the opportunity for such an impactful discussion. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
I didn't expect to say all that. But hello, my name is Karan Cooper. I'm 28 years old. I just recently graduated from King University, getting my master's in business administration. Thank you. And I am also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and I'm just thankful to be here. And yeah.
Well, okay. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Heath. I have a doctorate in psychology. I work in the school system, and I have a nonprofit that I created called Shoes University, which focuses on mental health on a community level. And Alex, thank you.
Hello, my name is Christina. I serve as a youth pastor. But I also work now as a restorative justice facilitator with justice-involved youth and those that are in danger of delinquency. And so it also touches on the mental health aspect of things. I am a creative at heart, so I love all things dance, poetry. I see you clapping in the back. Painting, all of that, and that's been a major part of just being able to express as well as being able to share hope with others. I think that's it. Thank you, Alex.
Hi, my name is Brianna. I'm 24 years old. I am a part of a ministry called Habitation Revival Center. We have a location in New York, and we also meet here in New Jersey at the College of New Jersey. I help serve in different areas. I also help lead a youth movement called Branded. And it's an honor to be here with y'all.
Okay, thank you guys so much for introducing yourselves. We can get started with the questions. And again, panelists, I just want you to know that feel comfortable to share as much as you want or don't want. You know, like I said, this is a heavy topic, so I want everyone to be comfortable in this moment. So each of you have a different story to tell when it comes to the topic of suicide, and each of you come with a different perspective. Some of you, if not all of you, could you share your personal experience with suicide? And again, share as much as you would like or not like. Any first people?
Yeah, so as a little girl growing up, I battled with pain from rejection and abandonment, and there were different experiences that I had faced in life that had opened the door for trauma to come in my life. Some of them were physical abuse, mental abuse, like physical and verbal abuse, and also rape. And for as long as I can remember, until the age of 17, I lived feeling constant pain and brokenness. And as a 5th grader in 2012, I started to have suicidal thoughts. And that was also the year that I started to cut myself. And in moments of being on the edge of decision, of, like there would be moments that I was literally like on the edge, like the way I see it, like on the edge of a cliff, like right in the moment of decision of choosing to, taking the steps to like really end my life, because I was just tired of the pain. I was tired of just feeling constant pain, of the brokenness, of the trauma. I was just tired. I felt like I didn't want to live. Like I couldn't even see a future. I didn't have any dreams. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life because like the suicidal thoughts were just that bad. But in those moments of, there were many moments where I would have this plan in my head of how I was going to end my life. But in those moments when I was about to do it, the Holy Spirit, he would, like, I remember hearing what I now know as like the voice of God, and it was like whispers that would meet me in that moment, and he would tell me like, you have a hope in the future, you have a hope in the future. So it was really the mercy and the love of God that brought me through all those years. And in 2015, I was introduced to marijuana, and that became an open door for addiction. And so I started smoking, and it just started as like, oh, I'm just gonna, chill, do this with my friends, just a one-time thing. But I kept going back for more and more, and then it became a way of like escapism for me, where I started battling with addiction. Like, I would work, and every check I would get, automatically spend it on drugs. I would steal money, because I was just addicted. Like, I wanted to escape the pain that I was feeling. It was just constant pain, breaking down. And that was my way of escaping, like drugs and alcohol, being under the influence. Even though I was in that place, in that very, like dark place of just battling with suicidal thoughts, battling with addiction, cutting myself, the message of like the love of God really followed me everywhere that I went. And so there would be times when I would be sitting on the park bench with my friends, high off weed, and it happened twice where this guy like just pulled up. He came to where we were at, and he just started speaking about the love of God. And we were there, and I'm not sure if he knew what we were doing, but there was nothing that came off as judgmental. Like, he just came with just like the pure love, and it was almost like I could feel it just like oozing out of him. And I just began to cry. I just began to cry in that moment, because that message of the love of God, you know, like the Lord knew what I was doing. And like, even in that moment, he's like, I see you. And I'm going to send someone to just remind you and tell you how much I love you. Yeah, like it doesn't matter what you've done or what you're doing or what you've gone through. Like nothing can separate you from my love. And so that happened, you know, it happened twice when I was with my friend smoking, and this guy came and just started speaking about the love of God. And then there was this one time when I was in high school that I had in-school suspension in my principal's office, and I was very stubborn. I was like, I'm not staying here. I'm leaving. I'm going home. Y'all cannot make me stay. Like, I'm walking out. But she just knew how to talk to me, and I ended up staying in her office. And while I was there in school suspension, that message again, the love of God, like she just started speaking to me about the love of God. And again, what happens, I start crying. And yeah, and a few weeks after that, early in 2017, there was a night that I was home and my parents, they caught me smoking. And the very next morning, they had kicked me out of the house and they sent me to my aunt's house. And I knew that like my aunt, she takes medication. And so as they were sending me to her house, I was like coming up with a plan. Like that was it. Like I was like, okay, when I get to her house, I'm gonna find out where she keeps the medication and I'm gonna overdose. And I did not plan on going to school that day. And it was like in my mind, in my heart, like in my mind, like I had already made that decision that this is my last day. Like, you know, I'm tired, I'm done. And I wasn't gonna go to school that day, but I ended up going to school that day. And I went inside my principal's office, the same one that I stayed in school suspension with. And the moment that she came in, I just broke down and I started crying. And I was telling her that I was, I told her what happened, and I told her that I was battling just like these suicidal thoughts, that I told myself that today was going to be my last day. And in that moment, she had told me that she was supposed to leave work early that day, but that God had told her to stay, you know, and this isn't a public school, you know, and so, I stayed with her and she prayed over me. And for me, like a few weeks after that, I had this encounter with Jesus that truly changed my life. And after this encounter, that pain, that brokenness that I had been feeling for 17 years of living, you know, I can't remember life before that encounter without feeling that pain. But for 17 years, that constant pain that I felt in my heart, when I got up off the floor from that encounter that I had with Jesus, I no longer felt that pain. You know, I felt the peace that I've never felt before, and I felt a joy that I never felt before. And that encounter that I had with the Lord truly changed my life. Yeah, so that's my story.
So 2/21/21 was the day that my son decided to leave me. He committed suicide at the age of 20. He was in the military. I had just spoke to him on a Thursday. He was laughing and joking. And I remember every time my son would call me, he would do a FaceTime call. And the day I saw him on that camera, I was like, wow, he just looks beautiful. He was glowing and everything. And in that moment, I knew I was never going to see my son again, and I didn't know why I felt that way. And then 2 nights later, I got a phone call that he died. And to this day, I still don't know who, what, where, when, or how. He never presented himself as being depressed. He was always a happy-go-lucky kid. And then 6 months later, my best friend who held me up at my son's casket committed suicide the same way that my son did. And I never, I'm the only girl out of 10 boys. So I was the strong one. I always had to have it together for everybody. And you know, you've experienced grief, but as a mother, you've never experienced grief until you lose a child. And that was the first time that I've ever experienced something like that and realized I didn't have the support system to get through it. And I didn't know what to do. I spiraled out of control. I was never the person who drank or used drugs because addiction runs in my family. I was the one who went to college, got the degree, had the master's, did everything the proper way, had a great job. And in the blink of an eye, I threw it all away because I didn't know how to handle grief and I didn't understand suicide. And through all of that, my stepfather, who was a great man, God rest his soul, but he raised me and he came to me and he told me I was better than who I was presenting myself to be. No one teaches you what it is to heal. No one can tell you what grief is. I went back to school. I got my doctorate. I tried to create, well, I didn't try. I did. I created an organization called Choose University because I still don't know how to handle my grief. But if I can have these conversations with people, if in my work with working with young kids, especially young men, because one of the statistics that you guys mentioned, the one thing that you guys both miss is that it's prevalent in men, males. Males are the most, and statistically, commit suicide more than women do. And I wanted to know and work hard on figuring out why that's a thing. And I went back to school, got my doctorate, created my organization, and quit my regular day job, and now I do this full time.
So the last thing I would think that it can happen to me. I didn't think that it would ever be in my situation where I was the one who decided to attempt to take my life. I suffer from really bad anxiety. When something is brought on to me, I lose focus, I panic, and under pressure, I'm really not the best. So when I was told the information that happened in my situation, I panicked. I got depressed. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I stayed in my room for about 2 weeks straight. Just in my room, just blackout curtains, didn't eat, didn't sleep. I couldn't focus. I had just got accepted to go to King University from Middlesex. So I was happy, but when this information when what happened to me, I lost it all. I couldn't focus. I felt like I was a disappointment. I felt like, you know, what next? How did this all happen all of a sudden? I didn't know how to think. I went from a person who weighed, at the time, 145 pounds. Within that week, 2 weeks, I was down to like 110 and just kept decreasing over and over and over again. In my family, I'm known as the person who smiles. I'm always laughing. You see me, I will always have a smile on my face. That wasn't the case in this time. And it wasn't until, I want to say, within those 2 weeks, maybe my mom didn't notice until like day 10 that same son that she had wasn't smiling at anyone. And then she came and she asked me, what's wrong? And at the time, my mom didn't really have a job at the time. My sister was pregnant. My other sister was in nursing school, so everyone was going about their own ways. No one was really paying attention. And it was hard for me because I'm not a person who really likes to admit what I'm going through, because I'd be seen as like I'm weak. And that's one thing that I'm trying to this very day, to counter that. You know, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to express what you're going through. But at that time, it was just a lot. And then the voice, like, I won't say voices in my head, but the thoughts in my head that was running, and I'm just like, you know what? I want to take the easy way out. I can't deal with it no more. So one day, and I waited till everyone was out the house, and it was just me. I sent 3 texts to my mom, my sisters, and my brother. I said, I love you. Just want to let you know I love you, and thank you for everything. I ran to the medicine cabinet. I grabbed any and every pill that I can see, and I mean from my mom's medication to when my grandmother was staying with me at the time, her medication. I didn't care what I was taking, didn't care how, and within 5 minutes, I didn't know what happened next, because after that, the next thing I remember is waking up and I'm in the hospital. Don't know what happened, but yeah, that's my story. And then after that, after they was able to pump out whatever I took, I found myself in a rehabilitation center. I was there, and I didn't want to be there. I really didn't. So I didn't go to any meetings. I didn't go to any activities. All I did was sit in the bed and just ate when I can, do what I had to do. Still losing weight. When my mom came to see me, she didn't even recognize me. I was just out of it. And it wasn't until my family started to like really show me that I do have a support system. There is love. There is someone out there, like, we are here for you. Because me growing up, I wasn't around, we're not very, how can I say, lovey-dovey in a sense. We don't really show love, but in that moment when I really, really needed it, I knew that I had a support system. I knew that I had a family that was there for me, and I knew there were other options and other ways to go about my situation. And I'm thankful that I am here today. I'm thankful that I know the people around me love me, and just happy to be here.
I just want to say that I love you, my brother. On January 17th, 2024, my life changed forever. That day I lost a brother, a friend, and someone who held a special place in my heart. His name was Brandon Warner. He was 26 years old, and he died by suicide. And we know this is a heavy conversation, so none of us, of course, take it lightly. I just want to say that I'm not here today just to honor Brandon's memory. I'm here to spread awareness, to open up dialogue, and to help others who may be navigating the same pain or carrying the same weight that Brandon held. If sharing Brandon's story means one person chooses to stay, chooses to speak up, or chooses to reach out, that's a life worth fighting for. So I just want to say and close my statement out with just, this isn't just about loss, attempts, or thoughts to commit suicide. It's about purpose. It's about prevention, and it's about the power of community, conversation, and connection. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, so I was on the side of wanting to commit suicide. I can't remember exactly when it started. I know I had thoughts in high school, but by the time I got to college is really when it shifted for me. And it came as a result of childhood trauma coming to the surface and finally being able to define abuse for what it was, because I didn't know it was abuse, because it was just a regular day for me. And so it wasn't until the people that I was around at that time began to call it out that it began to bring things to the surface, and I found myself in a spot where I was trying to remember a childhood that I had no recollection of. And so even there are moments now where there are certain things I remember, but I don't remember my elementary years. I don't remember a lot of even middle school, and I didn't realize that it was because there was so much that was suppressed that I had also, it was normalized. Caribbean culture, it was said even in the talk before of just, what stays in this house, you don't talk about it, or you sweep things under the rug, or you normalize abuse. And so there was a lot of that going on, and while all of that was happening, I was also within a community and had mentors who had the intentions of helping, but it became more detrimental for me because now everybody was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and so it sent me on this spiral of trying to remember a past I didn't know, and being able to recognize where, because when I was in high school, I would get sick a lot, and I had a lot of stomach problems, and I would go to doctors, and they wouldn't be able to locate where it was coming from, where a lot of go where it was. And I thought I was crazy, but I'm like, I know that I'm feeling this pain. And it wasn't until someone began to talk about abuse and emotions where I remember crying, and I remember having pain in my shoulders, and she had prayed for me, and she began to pray concerning abuse and those different things. And it was in that moment where for the first time I didn't feel the pain in my shoulders that I went to the doctor for, and that's what started to open up the can of worms for me. But as that was happening, people are like, choose life, do this. I'm like, I'm trying. Like, what do you mean choose life? Like, I'm trying to live. And it was a struggle. And so with that, there was the paranoia of feeling like, is somebody coming after me? Like, it would be in my dreams. Certain memories would start to pop up. Then I was in certain situations where people on the platform were trying to make passes at me. It was older men. And so all while trying to handle those different emotions, it just spiraled. And so I wasn't really going to class. I was bachelor's. I have a Bachelor of Science in criminal justice, and so I was in a victimology course, and I'm like, I can't sit in this, and so I had to say something to my teachers, and it just, it was rough. I was cutting, I was on medicine. And it got to a point where the people in my community, they didn't know what to do with me anymore. I was ready to check myself into a psych ward because I just couldn't take it. And I couldn't figure out how to get the thoughts to come to an end. And it was, again, by the grace of God, who the person who is now my pastor, and just being in that community is really what saved my life out of that. But it took me having to get into healthy community. It took me being around people that weren't just trying to poke at, this is what's wrong and this is what's wrong. With the medicine, it wasn't working for me, and I tried to tell the doctors, and they weren't really listening. They would try to increase the dosage, and that's when I knew, as much as what I was dealing with, I still knew enough to understand that something's not right here, and I feel like I'm a statistic in this situation versus you guys actually trying to help me. And so at that point, counseling couldn't do it for me. The medication couldn't do it for me because I didn't feel like anybody was hearing me and really trying to understand where I was coming from. And so, it took about a year for me to finally begin to feel like myself again. And it happened through an encounter in a church service, where after not taking the medicine anymore, y'all, it's a whole story. I'm not going to go into it. The point is, the Lord saved me. And yes.
Thank you guys for sharing your individual stories. For those of you who have lost and attempted, what were some of the warning signs that you might have missed or you feel like others missed concerning you? And what do you wish that people could have understood better in that time?
I guess I'll start. I didn't have a warning sign because I knew how to play it off real good. And so my family, nobody knew what was going on because the minute I got around them, I was all laughing like it was just normal. There was no like, are you okay? Any of that. And I think it wasn't until I started losing weight is when it became, more apparent. But if you could just look at me off of conversation, you wouldn't be able to tell. But when I began to lose weight, that's when it, started to come up to the front. What I wish people would understand, you just need to have conversations with people. Take time to sit down with them, not just because, we do this thing where it's like, oh, how are you? Oh, I'm good. I'm all right. But it's like such a quick response that we don't even think about it when we're saying it. And then it's like when you begin to have conversations with people and you just sit, it's like, oh, okay, let's talk about that. Like how is everything really? And so I feel like that's something at first that was lacking for me that I wish that there was more of.
I wish that I had slowed down. I wish that I had taken the moments to really hear, like you said, you gotta take time to listen, to hear what my son was saying to me when he wasn't saying it. There was times that my son would call me from the military and he would say, Mom, I'm not leaving the military. At that time, it was 2020. We were in the middle of COVID. They were about to send him overseas. I'm thinking he's just scared of his job. But I think that he knew that he wasn't trying to leave the military because he didn't want to be here anymore. There was also another time where we had a random conversation talking about his wife. And he said to me, if I can't be with her, I don't want to be alive. And my response is, what my mom would have told me is, I raised you, you came from me, you're not no weak, and you got to man up with that. Like, she's a woman, you can find another woman. And I didn't take into consideration that was his first real relationship. I didn't take into consideration that maybe I didn't teach him proper coping skills because he grew up with me. I had my son when I was 18 going on 19. He went through college with me, so my son went through everything with me. I didn't take into consideration that I gave my son trauma because I didn't know what it was to be a parent at that time. And all of those things, all of those factors, as I grew and I got better, I never stopped. I only got better for my kids. I have 3, so my 14-year-old got the greatest version of me. The middle child is kind of up in the air. My son had the worst version of me, and I didn't take the time to slow down and go back to work with my child. I wish that instead of me trying to be the financial supporter and break generational curses by bringing in wealth, that I had stopped and slowed down and loved on my children more. And when you lose your child, there's no going backwards. There's no shoulda, woulda. There's none of that. There's no healing there. You have to you have to grow with that pain and grow with that loss. And I wish that we be intentional in the things that we say to our children. We be intentional in the things that we say to each other. My hope and my prayer and what I give to people when I have these conversations is, when you're being intentional, remove yourself from the situation and speak to their inner child like you wanted somebody to speak to you.
Well, I hid most of my my warning signs, it wasn't until, like I said, my mom caught on that usually when I'm around my family, I'm the goofy one. I'm the one that's always trying to brighten up everyone's day. I'm the one that, I live with all sisters, so I'm trying to be the best male role model or best male that I could possibly be in the household. But it wasn't until, again, the smile started disappearing. I will only come out my room when I know either it's night or when I know everyone is away or asleep so they don't see me. So I'm up out of my room, going to the bathroom, going to shower, and I go back. I usually, when everyone was eating, if I did eat at the time, I would eat after everyone is done. So I tried to keep it as much inside as possible, and it wasn't, again, until my mom started to realize that something is wrong with my son. And she came, and we had a conversation, and we spoke. And again, I didn't want to involve my sister because, again, at the time she was, pregnant. I didn't want to stress her as much as possible. So I took it, all to the chin. I kept it all inside as much as I can until it became noticeable. So if I was more open enough, maybe the warning signs would have been more available, and it wouldn't have gotten as far as it did. But you live and you learn, and whatever advice that I can bring on from my personal experience, I can give to the youth, or I can give to others, and encourage others that it's okay to speak up.
For me, I think looking back, it was hard for me to dissect the entire situation. I felt like we did everything that we could, but realistically, we did not. And I think for me, something that I just want to highlight is Brandon had a few episodes that came about before things actually went down, if you must, to where we took all of your rule-governed, step-by-step approach, the clinical approach, where he was mentally diagnosed with some things, the medication, the rehabilitation, you name it, all of those book things took place. Brandon was getting better, or at least we thought that. So I think my warning sign that I want to speak on is when you think someone is getting better, that doesn't mean they necessarily are. And when you think the medication is working, that doesn't mean it necessarily is. I want to highlight, I think a few people up here spoke on it, is, Brandon never said out loud, I want to kill myself, or I'm going to commit suicide. But it was an internal battle that he was facing. So I think for me, I just want to speak on, while many resources are important and often life-saving, never put too much trust in them alone. The medication works, the therapy works, the rehabilitation works, but not all the time or not by itself. So I think many of us believe that Brandon was simply going through a season, one that would pass with time and support, but he only made one attempt, and it was a successful attempt. And that reality is something that I carry with me every day. But if I could rewind time, I would just place a huge emphasis on bringing him back to the source properly. That source is God. I think that was one of the biggest pieces that we're missing. And for me personally, I fight the battle every day of saying I didn't do enough. So the warning signs weren't necessarily evident in saying suicide, but they were evident in there's an internal struggle that every resource available on earth is needed, with the Most High being God. That was the part that was missing. I'll leave it at that.
I'm going to move on to the next. Did you want to? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Yeah, thinking back, to just the younger me, the younger Brianna, I wish that family members, people in authority, that they would have just taken the time to hear me out, to listen and really validate my feelings and just be open to what I had to say, because something that I realized now after just, becoming older is that I realized that in most Hispanic households, like the children, they're silenced. And for me, like, since I was a young girl, I was silenced. I couldn't have an opinion about anything. If I was to share an opinion of how something made me feel, or like it was considered disrespectful, and anytime that I would open my mouth, or that, I couldn't share anything. I couldn't share my thoughts. I couldn't share how I felt. And anytime that I would, it would end up just in like physical abuse. And because I went through that, like growing up, from a really young age growing up, there came a point in my life where like people would try to talk to me, to try to get me to open up to them, and I just silence. I wouldn't want to say anything because of, I guess, trauma, like that was trauma that I had been through, where it's anytime that Brianna couldn't say anything. If Brianna said anything, she's getting beat, like she's disrespectful. You're younger than me, so like you have no right to like, you know what I mean? It was almost like this thing with pride, like I'm right, you're wrong. The adult, I'm always right and you're wrong. That's just how it always felt for me growing up. And there came a point in my life where, because of everything that I was doing, I was getting into a lot of trouble, smoking weed, and I'm going to say it real, my parents didn't really know what to do with me. And because they never really took the time to hear me out, like they would tell everyone, like I'm Dominican, and so I have a lot of family in DR, and my parents, my mom would, like everybody in the Dominican Republic knew about Brianna. They knew all the bad stuff that Brianna was doing. They knew that Brianna was smoking. They knew that Brianna was always cutting class. They knew that Brianna got arrested. They knew that Brianna did this, that, and the third, but they didn't know. They just knew the bad stuff Brianna was doing. They didn't know why Brianna was doing it. They didn't know that Brianna was being abused. They didn't know that, they didn't know the deeper things, the things behind that. They just saw the bad actions I was doing, but they didn't see what I was like going through. And so even because of that, when like the fact that like everybody had this bad image of who I was, and because my parents did not know what to do with me and would just be telling everybody about the bad things I was doing, for me it was like, everybody knows my business. Everybody knows what I'm doing. So that was even a turnoff for me, like to even go to therapy. Like I didn't want to go to therapy because it's like, what I'm gonna tell another stranger my business for? Like I was just like really angry at the fact that like, these things were being told about me, but they didn't know what I was going through. They just saw like the surface level things, but they didn't see the things that were deeper, the things that was behind the actions that I was, that I was doing. And so, like your voice matters, how you feel, like it matters. And that's just something I wish that I would have just known, when I was younger. I know it was hard because of the situation that I was in, but like your voice matters, your feelings matter.
For those of you who have unfortunately lost a loved one, can you speak to the person that they were? And can you discuss what things or support systems helped you to cope with your grief?
My son, Julian Anthony Contreras, makes him real. He was the best parts of me. Very funny. Always the life of the party. Always making sure everybody's okay. He's taller than me, and I'm pretty tall. And my son was taller than me. And sometimes I felt like, I'm not going to cry today. My makeup's too bomb. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to. I'm holding it. I really am. But my under eye concealer's going to start running, guys. Because I want to hug. The mother in me wants to hug everybody on the stage right now. But my son was just amazing. He was a a gift. I didn't recognize the gift that he was, but he's the gift that keeps on giving because I changed my life and I'm here. I grew up in a church, and I was discussing this back with you guys in there, but I grew up in a church. And I mean, my grandfather's pastor, my cousin's pastor, church, Springfield, everybody, we were really grounded in church in New York. When I moved to Jersey, I became a part of a church for 7 years, and when my son committed suicide, they basically shunned us. I was seeking solace. I was seeking understanding because, nobody teaches you how to deal with suicide or the loss of a child. However they go, no mother's ever prepared to lose their child. And I'm only 43, so I've gone through a lot of trauma at a young age. And I went to my church, and they basically blamed me for my son committing suicide. And this is the first day, only because of you, that I've been back in a church since my son's funeral services in 2021. I have not come back to the church since then. I still worship on Zoom. I have refused to step foot back into a church. I got therapy, but I got fired from 4 therapists because at that point I already had my doctorate. So you're telling me stuff I already know. And my mom never showed up for me. My mother never came to my son's funeral. Half my family never showed up to my son's funeral. And my mom's reasoning was I was getting married the following year, and she wanted to save her money to buy a coat for my wedding. And so she couldn't come to my son's funeral. So unfortunately, I am the 7% statistic that cannot sit on the stage and tell you what pathways are the best ways to take, because unfortunately, I had to deal with my grief and everything alone. However, I can say that when I educate others, I tell them if nothing is working, like you said, the last thing that people don't realize is spirituality is a thing, and seeking God and finding solace in your peace. You can do that through God, church, anything that you feel. Some people may not believe in God, some people may not have conventional, but spirituality is real. And being grounded in something can keep you here. I also tell people that safe spaces are a thing. I teach safe spaces. A safe space can be a person. It could be a church. A safe space can be the gym. Create a safe space for yourself so that you have an area for where you think or you want your change to happen at,
Brandon was a light. He was the kind of person who walked into a room and made it brighter. Always smiling, always finding a way to leave people better than they were when he found them. His energy was contagious, and his presence was simply unforgettable. What made Brandon so unique in my life was the way he trusted me. He looked to me as a mentor, a brother, and someone he believed that could help guide him to be a better man in this world. Spiritually, emotionally, and simply in every area of life. That kind of trust is rare, especially as a man. We have a lot of pride, we have a lot of ego. We're so busy worrying about competition and being better than the next man that we often refuse to be vulnerable and allowing another man to help us be that better man. Brandon trusted me. And, I think there's a scripture that kind of captures our bond perfectly. And it's just Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Brandon was my iron. He made me a better man as I was helping him to. We challenged each other. We held each other accountable. We pushed each other to grow no matter what it was. And even now, in his absence, I think it's important for me to highlight that he continues to shape the man that I'm becoming. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for Brandon. I'm thankful for his life. And I'm thankful for who he was and always will be to me as a man. I think, something that I just want to highlight on how to navigate if you just lose somebody or lose someone from suicide is I personally have been through a lot of loss in my life. I've lost family and loved ones, in car crashes unexpectedly at 17 years old, to gun violence and murder, to cancer, to old age, in every way. And I never experienced suicide until Brandon. That was the one thing that I was like, you know what? It could be worse, right? And that worse happened. So nothing prepared me for losing someone to suicide. So Brandon's passing really hit me differently. It wasn't just unexpected. It left behind a silence that felt deeper than anything I've ever faced in my life. So because I've been through so much death, I've done your grief counseling 10 times. How many times can you do it? I've done your going to your brothers and having the conversations. I'm a huge advocate for speaking out loud. I think it's, makes you more of a man to cry, more of a man to be vulnerable, more of a man to say what you're hurting or what you need. So I've done all those things. So it was like, this time, how could I do that again? But I never got closer to God than I did when Brandon passed away. So for me, we all know and hear it all the time. I mean, God heals, God loves, God forgives, God forgets, God defends, God is good. So for me, I highlight that and I smile. If I don't smile, I will cry. But I smile saying the one thing and only thing that helped me regarding suicide was our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So thank you.
In your experience, how does stigma or shame around suicide affect someone's willingness to seek help? And what advice would you give to someone who feels isolated or afraid to reach out?
Yeah, that's a major one. It makes me infuriated when we talk about the stigma. I think it is, you're doing yourself a disservice to humankind by walking in that stigma, believing in that stigma, or not holding the people around you accountable to rebuke that stigma. So for me, I think it was highlighted in the PowerPoint presentation. Some people up here spoke on it. I'm just here to say the stigma, though it is real, it is complete BS. Excuse my language, just want to leave it at that. My advice is just for anyone to know that you are not alone. You are never alone. Even if you're in your room by yourself, or don't have a friend to turn to, or don't have any family, or don't, whatever's missing, it doesn't matter what it is, you are not alone. So for me, I think it's important to highlight that first, and really just, my advice for navigating grief after losing someone or just going through these attempts is just to acknowledge the pain. Acknowledge it out loud. It's okay to not be okay. We need to talk, right? Like, it's on the board right here. We need to talk, and we can talk until we can't talk no more. It is an honor to be able to vocalize how you feel. Some people can't speak in this world. Some people can't see. Some people, disability runs very deep. And if you can speak and speak properly, I work with individuals who are nonverbal. They can't tell you how they feel. They can't tell you what's wrong. They can't tell you about any pain. You name it, life is different for them. I'm fortunate enough to be able to vocalize properly and articulate phrases and everything under the sun. That means I'm fortunate enough to say how I feel. So acknowledge the pain. Give yourself grace, right? Like, we're too hard on ourselves. That stigma makes it a little bit harder out here. Unfortunately, the black culture makes it a little harder out here. You name it, everybody knows what you could be called, or you're to be soft, or to be this or that, especially as a black man in this world. Give yourself grace, and I'm telling you, you have permission that does not need to be granted by anybody to feel the way you feel, to talk about these things, and to get past them. So just know that. I mean, healing is a roller coaster. Some days will feel better than others, and you have to know that that's simply okay. Allow yourself to hurt. Allow yourself to heal. Cry when you need to. Grief is something that can be fixed, but it's something that you have to learn to navigate. You won't learn that overnight. You won't learn that on the first time you lose someone. You won't. I mean, here I am today. I spoke about many different occasions of death, and I'm still finding a way. So I just want to leave you guys with, take it one day at a time. Let go of the guilt. When you look in the mirror, you think about, specifically with Brandon, I say, how dare you, Avery? How dare you not save his life? How dare you not? But that's God's job, right? Like, that wasn't my job to do. I did everything that I could and could have did a lot more, but, God is the Almighty. So stop thinking that you're God, because it means a lot. And then I'll just say two other things is simply be patient with yourself and seek support whenever needed. Try to be aware of your triggers and the things that set you off. Nobody knows you better than yourself. So when you look in the mirror, and things feel heavy, acknowledge it. When you look in the mirror, you don't like who you see, acknowledge it. When you look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm hurting right now, let me cover it up because I have things to do, take a step back and slow down. It was spoken on here, you're only as good as you allow yourself to be. And if you can't pour from an empty cup, right, you can't help the next person without helping yourself first. So just my advice to everyone and anyone is simply know that it's okay to not be okay. And we all handle grief in different ways. Your way is never necessarily wrong, but just continue to fight one day at a time.
Some of the stigmas that I think is the fear of judgment. I feel like, or being seen as differently. I feel like, I hear a lot today that, when celebrities go through, mental health or, suicidal thoughts, we always hear people, well, why are they so depressed? They have all the money in the world. And honestly, we don't know what people go through, even with money and who hold power, what they go through every day. So who are we to judge? Why are we seeing people, differently? So I feel like, fear of judgment, also worrying about burdening others, and internalizing shame. That's what, people who suffer in silence. So those are some of the stigmas I feel like we should project. Also, some advice that I would like to give is something that my mom told me after my situation. She just told me to let me know that you matter. Your life holds value. You are here on this world to do something. Don't ever think that your life is worthless, and just keep moving forward, and just say to yourself every day, if I can give you any motivation, just know that you matter and you're here for a purpose. God put you here on this earth for a purpose, and always know that. And also, small talk. I substitute at Hillside High School, where I've gained a bond with the juniors and seniors to now where they feel comfortable enough. Instead of just, hey, Mr. Cooper, hey, they come to me and they speak to me now, and they can hold conversations because I've gained that trust with them. I've gained, where they feel like it's a safe space to come talk to me, and, whatever they're going through at home, whatever advice I can give them, the resources that we have, I'm always willing to help wherever I can and however I can. I know a student who's going through, who's troubling issues at home because of his sexuality, and his father doesn't play that. And every day, I just see it getting worse and worse, and I'm encouraging him, and it got to a point where I knew that if I didn't step in and guide him to the right resources, it can get worse. So I directed him to the guidance office and social worker, and now he lives in a better environment. He's every day he talks to me now, he's just doing better. He said, Mr. Cooper, I'm so happy you stepped in and you guided me to where, because after a certain time, you just realize that there's nothing more that I can do. I'm not trained enough. I can do but so much, but after I feel like I can't give enough, or I have no advice, I have to point you to that next direction to show where you can seek happiness and where you can be safe. So I'm just honored that over the past 2 years that I've been there, that I've gained a lot of respect and love, and just being that I'm able to talk to them and be their safe space.
I think you both answered the question so very eloquently. I don't have much to add besides God is love. You were created in his image, so you are love. So no matter how you feel, if you feel alone, and if you feel like you don't have anybody, know that you have God, and that is the most important thing.
I would say when it comes to shame and things, just to speak directly to the church, I would say, we got to take the mask off. We got to take the wig off, take the lashes off, take it all off, be bare, because we've done such a great job at hiding and like being fake. Because, you know, again, it's the how are you? Oh, I'm good. Or the I'm blessed and highly favored, you know. And, you know, there could be some truth to that. However, there's so much that goes unspoken about. It goes untouched. And I feel like it's like we just have to do a better job, like understanding that nobody is above pain. Jesus felt pain. Like, you know, it says, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. And so it's like, if Jesus, the one who died for us, the one who saved us, the one who understands our weaknesses, went through it, ain't no way we're not going through it and we're not experiencing it. But it's understanding, like, coming back to this is me, this is where I am, this is how I feel, the removing the judgment, removing the casting stones, all of it. We got to just take it all off and come back to, like, let's be real. You know, like, if we look at the world, like, they waiting for something real, and it's like, if we're supposed to be the ones to show something real and we're not being real, where are we going, you know? And so that's what I would say. Take it all off. Let's. That's right. Yeah.
My bad. Okay. You kind of answered the next question. But what changes would you like to see in the broader conversation about mental health, especially related to suicide, and how can